One of the things I would love and was just so looking forward to talking to you about was how you approach mastery and learning. Because as we've seen throughout this conversation already and throughout your story, the fact that you're such a polymath also requires that you have great skills in learning, creating depth, and getting to grips with a new subject. And people will have heard in the intro that you've been called one of North America's foremost martial arts instructors. So, could you talk to your process of approaching learn something new that you have to learn, that you have to study, that you have to master? And what do you think made the difference for you? I know we talked about your mentor, but also in that process of just becoming such a great martial arts instructor.
Yeah, whatever I'm good at, it comes from it comes from starting and never quitting. That's an oversimplification, but
Mm-hmm.
I've come back to this a lot lately. You have to be willing to be bad at something if you ever want to be good at it. That keeps a lot of people from starting. Maybe you go to the golf course and the first time you go, you're just horrible. So you quit, right? And then you go and take a karate class and you're just horrible. So you quit. You decide, I'm going to start an internet business, and you start an internet business and it goes okay for 3 months and then it just goes horrible and you quit. You are never going to get good at something if you're not willing to be bad at it first. A lot of us get good at stuff like speaking and walking when we're too young to recognize that there's work involved, that the work is just life. Um, but if people want to get good at something, first they have to start. Second, they have to do it without judging themselves. They have to find a way to do that thing. If you like it, keep doing it. Um, but then you also have to have some kind of drive to get better. It's fun to play solitaire on your smartphone, but after you do that for 3 weeks, you've probably figured out the game. You're going to lose interest because most of us lose interest because there's not much room to
Mm-hmm.
get better. Or the last part of getting better at solitaire is minor. Um, uh, so some drive, right? It's competitive drive. If you're a boxer or a gymnast, you want to go out and win that event or win that fight. In business, you might have, they say surround yourself with 5 successful people if you want to be successful. In business, a little competition. Hey, I grew my business from 1 million to 2 million last year. How'd you do? But or something has to drive you to get better at your processes, to increase your goals, to be more ambitious. Um, Never, ever quit except except if you wake up one day and you've given a lot of thought and you realize what you're doing is a path that's not right for you, right? But that's a big decision. If you think the
Mm-hmm.
thing is still got value and it still connects with you, never ever quit. You can take Sunday off, but don't quit. So I guess I am kind of giving you a formula. Start, be willing to be bad at it, don't judge yourself, be ambitious, right? To always get better, never quit. And by the way, every business and every mastery path is going to have plateaus. You're going to get
Mm-hmm.
good and you're going to stop or even drop a little bit. And then what comes in really handy is having a mentor or a coach or a role model, because you can see they've passed through it and they might have left clues for you to follow. Or if you're lucky enough to enlist them as a personal mentor, they can tell you what they did.
Mm-hmm.
Now, here's a pitfall with that. Some people are like photographers. They can see what somebody else did and they can take a picture and they can do that. A lot of polymaths and creatives can't do that. We see a path, we take a snapshot of it, and we want to go run away and do something else. We're the people that have to turn it around and turn it around. We're going to draw a painting of it that doesn't look quite like the path that we saw. If you recognize that about yourself, you have to be willing to indulge in that as you go. As you get a mentor, you might not be able to follow that mentor's advice exactly because it doesn't fit you. So it depends on who you are. That's a little
Mm-hmm.
different approach. Some people can do it exactly. And I have very successful friends who pick up a book on something, right? Business success in 3 weeks. They can do everything in that book. They're done. Good for them. They also lose interest faster. Then the creatives and the polymaths, we have to turn around, we have to run away, we have to do something else. We come back. And when we come back, it doesn't look like that, but we needed to go through that process to get there, to have a mentor. And then at the end of the day, you're going to show up, you're going to be moving up, things get more complex, you got to go through that process again. And some days you're going to show up and you're going to just not have it. You're going to sit there and you're going to go, I just don't want to do this work. And as Jocko Willink says, the guy who's created Echelon Front, even if you're just putting in the work, put in the work. Some days you just got to put in the work, because tomorrow would be better if you do, and it'll be worse if you don't.
Yes.
Yep.
One of the big lessons that I'm hearing in your story in general, right from the start and also now, is to have that system basically of things that you do every day, no matter what, that are direct needle movers towards what you're trying to achieve. Correct?
Yes. Yes. And a system of things you do in many areas of life. Lucas, do you have a morning routine?
I have to be completely honest. This is something where I'm falling off a little bit because I'm just dialing in so many new business projects and stuff that's coming together, talking to people in the US, then getting up early for European um, appointments. So, not to make this an excuse, but I have to say this is just something that I'm currently figuring out.
Yeah. Well, and one of the challenges is that what I just described. There are a lot of people who tell you what your routine should be. But guess what? That's not your routine. You got to figure out your own. And maybe you're a person who doesn't need a morning routine. I found out after people telling me for decades that you should have a routine that I could piece together. You know, alarm goes off, make the bed, brush my teeth, have my coffee. You know, sounds simple. But if I skip making the bed, it's not as good, right? And then when I get to the office, there are 5 things I do before I start work. And, you know, you forget them. But if you forget them and never go back, you've quit. If you forget them and you say, I forgot them yesterday, but I'm going to do them again today, right? And then you refine it over time. So it sounds like a contradiction, doesn't it? Based on what I said earlier about being a harebrained guy and not working from emotion. But there are some things. Well, here's an example. Here's a great example. And that is in the martial arts world, right? We have something called kata. And that's these prearranged forms. You know, every single time you do them exactly the same way. You bow, you turn, you do this block, this punch, you turn, and you fight these imaginary enemies. You know, a simple one might have 20 moves. A complex one might have 100 moves. 108 moves is one. After you've learned that pattern, why would you do it again every day for the rest of your life? Why would you, right? Well, you do it because there are benefits to that, right? It makes your physicality better. It tunes your nervous system. You learn internal lessons. There's different things you can focus on. The act of doing it, it's one thing to get good at it so you can perform it or win a tournament, but the act of doing it itself contains benefits. And so I didn't discover this, but I finally, after many years, took the lesson. If you make a kata out of certain things, in my case, my routine when I first get out of bed, my routine when I first get to the office, my routine when I start a martial arts class, those routines have benefits. And when you see that, you're doing the routine for the benefits. You know, funny I should say that. You asked me this, you know, how do you get yourself to do things that you don't want to do? How do you get people to be more accountable? How do you get people to get on the path to success and not quit? This may be one of the psychological tricks that I use and maybe that other people could use, which is learn to see the benefits of what you do. And so when you sit down at the table, you're not eating the food because it tastes good right now, although that's very nice. If it's a healthy meal that's going to make you feel better in 3 hours or make you more fit tomorrow, you start eating for tomorrow. The long-term benefits, you start making your bed for how you feel that afternoon or that evening when you come home and see it made. You start cleaning your desk at work so that you have that clean environment, how it makes you work for the rest of the day. Get up and do the Brendan Burchard exercises. because it makes you feel good now, but it also makes you have sustainable energy for another hour.
Yes.
You see the benefits instead of doing it for the moment.